Welcome to the comfy zone. Make yourself at home.
I've always liked living in a quiet neighborhood. It was peaceful and relaxing, and I never had to worry about any noise or trouble from the people around me. That's why I was surprised when I saw a moving truck parked in front of the house next door. It had been empty for months, and I hoped it would stay that way. I watched from my window as a large family emerged from the truck. There were at least 6 of them, maybe more. They all looked alike, with pale skin, dark hair and eyes, and thin frames. They wore black clothes that seemed too big for them, and they carried their belongings in old suitcases and cardboard boxes. They didn't talk to each other, or smile, or show any emotion. They just moved in silence, like robots. I felt a chill run down my spine as I observed them. Something was off about them, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. They seemed out of place, out of time, out of this world. I wondered who they were, where they came from, and what they wanted. I decided to introduce myself to them, hoping to break the ice and maybe learn something about them. I put on my best smile and walked over to their front door. I knocked politely and waited for an answer, hoping to break the ice and maybe learn something about them. I put on my best smile and walked over to their front door. I knocked politely and waited for an answer. The door opened slowly, and one of them stood in front of me. He was a man, probably in his 40s, but he looked older. He had a gaunt face, with sunken cheeks and hollow eyes. He stared at me with a blank expression, as if he didn't recognize me as a human being. "Hello," I said nervously. "I'm your neighbor from across the street. I just wanted to welcome you to the neighborhood and see if you need any help with anything." He didn't say anything. He just kept staring at me, with a faint hint of curiosity in his eyes. So, what's your name?" I asked, trying to make conversation. He opened his mouth slightly and whispered in a raspy voice, "We are the Smiths." I tried to be friendly with the Smiths, but they didn't seem interested in socializing. They kept to themselves, rarely leaving their house or talking to anyone. They didn't have any friends, or hobbies, or jobs. They just existed in their dark and gloomy home. I noticed that they had a strange habit of watching me. At first it was subtle. I would catch a glimpse of them peeking through their curtains, or standing on their porch, or walking by their fence. They would always look away quickly, as if they were embarrassed or afraid. But as time went by, they became more bold. They would stare at me openly, with a mix of fascination and hunger in their eyes. They would follow me with their gaze as I walked to my car or mowed the lawn or took out the trash. They would stand in their yard in broad daylight and watch my house for hours. I started to feel uneasy around them. I wondered what they wanted from me, what they were planning to do. I wondered if they were dangerous or crazy or something else. I learned their names, but not much else. There was the father, John Smith, who was the leader of the family. He was cold and stern, and never smiled. There was the mother, Mary Smith, who was quiet and submissive, and always followed her husband's orders. There were the 4 children, Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel. They looked like they ranged in age from young adults to teenagers, but they all acted like children. They never went to work or school, interacted with anyone else in the neighborhood, or did anything normal. They just obeyed their parents and watched me. One night, I woke up to a strange noise outside my window. I got up and looked out and saw them standing in my yard. All 6 of them. They were facing my house, staring at it with an intense expression. They didn't move or blink or make a sound. They just stood there, like statues. I felt a surge of fear and anger in my chest. I grabbed my phone and called the police. I told them that there were trespassers on my property and they needed to come right away. I waited for the police to arrive, watching the Smiths from behind the curtains. They didn't seem to notice me or care that I had called the cops. They just kept staring at my house, as if they were waiting for something. I wondered what they were waiting for, and then I heard it. A loud bang on my front door. I jumped out of my bed and ran to the door. I looked through the peephole and saw one of the Smiths standing on my porch. It was Adam, the oldest son. He had a twisted smile on his face, and he was holding a large book in his hand. He knocked again, louder this time. "Hello, neighbor," he said in a cheerful voice. "Can I come in?" I felt a wave of panic wash over me. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a flashlight, and held it in front of me. "Go away!" I shouted. "Leave me alone!" He tilted his head and frowned. "Why are you so rude?" he asked. "Don't you want to be friends?" He slammed the book into the door, making a loud bang. "I just want to talk to you," he said, "and maybe share some stories." He slammed the book again, making a dent in the wood. "I have some interesting stories, neighbor," he said, "and so do my family." He slammed the book again, making the dent bigger. "Let me in, neighbor," he said, "or I'll make you." He slammed the book again, and again, and again. I backed away from the door, terrified. I looked out the window and saw that the other Smiths were still in my yard, watching me with curious eyes. They were all holding books. I realized that I was trapped. I screamed for help, but no one came. I don't know how long I stayed in my house hiding from the Smiths. They never stopped knocking on my door or banging on my windows or calling my name. They never stopped trying to get in. I tried to call the police again, but the line was dead. I tried to call anyone, but no one answered. I tried to go online, but there was no connection. I tried to turn on the TV, but there was only static. I felt like I was cut off from the world. I wondered what had happened to the police and why they didn't come. I wondered if anyone else knew what was going on and if they could help me. I wondered if I was the only one left alive. I decided to take a risk and look outside. I peeked through the curtains and saw that the Smiths were still there. They were sitting on my lawn, reading their books. They looked calm and relaxed, as if they were enjoying a picnic. They didn't notice me, or so I thought, until one of them looked up and met my eyes. It was Eve, the oldest daughter. She had a sweet face with emerald green eyes and freckles curtained between her black locks. She smiled at me and waved. "Hi, neighbor," she said in a soft voice. "We missed you." She got up and walked towards my door. She was holding a book. I panicked and closed the curtains. I ran to the back door and tried to open it. It was locked. I looked for the keys, but I couldn't find them. I realized that the Smiths had taken them. I heard Eve knock on the front door. "Neighbor, are you there?" she asked. "We have something for you." I heard her open the door and enter my house. I heard her footsteps on the floor. I heard her voice getting closer. "Neighbor, where are you?" she asked. "Don't be shy." I ran to the bathroom and locked myself in. I looked for a weapon, but there was nothing. I looked for a way out, but there was none. I was trapped. I heard Eve knock on the bathroom door. "Neighbor, are you in there?" she asked. "We have a surprise for you." I heard her open the door and enter the bathroom. I saw her standing in front of me. She was holding a book. It was a poetry book. She opened it and showed me a page. It had a poem about the human soul, with labels and metaphors on how to capture it. She pointed at the poem and smiled. "This is you, neighbor," she said. "You're our inspiration." She put the book down and picked up a pen. She walked towards me and raised the pen. She smiled and said, "Neighbor, I have a confession to make. I've always admired you. You have such a beautiful soul. I want to share it with you." She leaned in and pressed the pen against my lips. She said, "I want to write a poem on your mouth." She moved the pen across my lips. I felt a ticklish sensation and wet ink. I gasped and tried to pull away. She said, "Don't worry, neighbor, it won't stain for long. Soon you'll be able to speak my words, and I'll be able to hear your voice. We'll be in sync, neighbor. We'll be in sync." She kept moving the pen faster and faster. I felt my mouth drying up. I saw her face getting closer and closer. She said, "I love you, neighbor. I love you." She kissed me on the lips. I opened my mouth and spoke. I spoke her poem. It was a poem about how to capture a human soul. It went like this. To capture a human soul, you need a pen and a page. A pen to write your love, and a page to make them rage. You need to find a victim, someone who has a fire, someone who stirs your heart, someone who sparks desire. You need to get near to them and make them feel secure. You need to make them want you and make them fall for sure. You need to write a poem and make it sweet and true. A poem that flatters them and makes them think of you. You need to write it on their lips and make them speak it loud. A poem that seals their fate and makes them join your crowd. You need to kiss them on the mouth and make them breathe your air. A kiss that takes their soul and makes them yours to share. I spoke her poem. I felt her kiss. I felt her air. I felt her soul. I felt nothing more.